Hello guys, so welcome to another video. Today is all about broccoli, and right now we're in front of our greenhouse. So we grow a lot of our summer crops here, like tomatoes and peppers, also cucumbers, but this year we are also growing some broccoli and Brussels sprouts there. So I'm gonna show you how we're doing, and let's get in. Alright guys, so welcome to inside our greenhouse, and as you can see we have still a lot of things growing even though it's beginning of November, and now we keep the door closed because the nights are getting close to 0 degrees, but the frost here still didn't arrive. As you can see over here we still have basil growing, which is a really warm loving plant, but over here we have some broccoli leaning from that row. So all this row behind me was tomatoes, and you can still see them growing all the way to the top, but the cold temperatures are taking its toll on it. They're getting a disease called blight, which is like a fungal disease, and that happens when there is a differences between the hot and cold weather, and especially the cold nights are really not good for them. And over here in this row we had some cucumbers and melons growing, but they didn't do so good this year for some reason. Also started pretty late, and on those rows on the left we had some peppers growing and also carrots. Alright, so let's get closer to see some better look on the broccolis. So originally we planted the broccolis only on the road over there on the left, but then we replanted some over here after we picked the radishes earlier in the spring, and now you can see we have some florets still growing. Alright, so right now I'm in the middle of the broccoli patch. As you can see, I'm surrounded with the broccolis everywhere, and this is for me is the second year growing broccoli. I tried growing it outside I think last year, but without success. They will just I will just plant them in the spring from the seed, and by the time they will start growing it will be already too hot, and they will just grow into little plants like this and then just go to a seed, and you would have a very little florets coming up. So it's actually a tip from the MI Gardener on YouTube to start broccoli later, so that way they'll get used to the heat. But this year I made an experiment of planting them over here in a greenhouse. So I planted them again from the seed, and I got a packet of different kinds, which is like producing small florets instead of one big one. So as you can see, we have everywhere here small florets going on. So this is the one I'm picking. It takes more effort to find and pick all of them, you know, and I don't know if I would grow this kind again, but you know, this is what we get. So I just have like a lot of florets, as you can see around me, and it takes time to pick them. So I planted these broccolis here in about April, and I thought the same thing would happen to them as last year on outside, that they will just go to seed very quickly and bolt. But it was different. They just started growing and they expanded so much. You can see they're pretty high, and they even overshadow some other plants here, like the melons that are growing here, which were not successful. Maybe part of it was because we planted them so close together, these ones. These broccolis were not producing any florets until about June. That's when the first ones were starting, and more we're producing because we're approaching the end of summer, and we're getting some harvest from it, but nowhere near as I would like. So I would not recommend to buy this little florets one, and maybe next year I'm gonna buy seeds from the bigger broccoli and try to grow that one. So what are my tips for growing broccoli? The number one tip would be that you definitely need more space than you think. Even though the broccoli head is small, the plant is, as you can see, pretty huge, so you need quite a lot of place for it. And don't plant it next to other big vegetables, you know, just leave it by itself and don't overshadow it. Even though they're called hardy vegetable, they still need a lot of sunlight, so they're not gonna do good somewhere under some plants in the shadow. Probably the most important tip is to plant it at the right time. As I said, the first year I tried to plant it like in the beginning of spring, but then springs over here in Serbia can get really hot. Already at the end of April and beginning of May can get 30 degrees, which they don't like, and they're just gonna bolt so quickly, even before the summer. So what I would recommend is to plant it later, like in June, when the temperatures are steadily already hot, and that way you can just the plant will just get used to the hot temperatures and not bolt so quickly. So even though the broccoli prefers more colder weather, it can still do good even in a hot weather, but it needs to get kind of grow up into it. So it doesn't like to grow up in a cold and then it will get that hot shock. It just prefers to grow up in a hot weather. If you do, that's what you're gonna get it. So that's why I recommend to plant it sometimes in June, and then you're gonna get like harvest sometimes in September. Also, I would recommend to put a lot of nitrogen in the soil, as you want a lot of leaves to produce a lot of florets, so a lot of nitrogen. So a good tip if you want a lot of free nitrogen is to use your urine. So it's for free and provides lots of nutrients to your plants, if you, especially in stages where it needs to grow a lot of leaves. So you can use it for smaller tomatoes. Right, so let's pick some broccoli for now. Alright, so as you can see, I'm picking for quite a long time, and I didn't pick even like a one head of broccoli, which is just ridiculous. So that's why I would never recommend to grow this small floret kind, and just grow a normal kind where you have a big head, and that way you will see when it's ready. And like this, you have to come in a greenhouse every few days to pick them, and they're so hard to see because it's all green and so small to pick. Just takes too much time and you don't have much broccoli in your basket. Another thing with broccoli is that if you don't pick it on time, it will just go to flower, like these ones over here, and it's just not good for eating. So these are very close to getting into flower as well, so I have to pick them today. And over here you can see we have some more broccoli mixed with Brussels sprouts. So we planted them actually from the glass house because they're growing there. They're too close together, and we're getting even here some florets. It's not such a big success as in a greenhouse, but still, because you can see this kind survived even outside, but definitely a less harvest than from the one in a greenhouse. here we have another raised bed where we replanted the broccoli and some of the Brussels sprouts. So this raised bed was before full of tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes, but after the first frost they got decimated. So now the broccoli and the Brussels sprouts have more space, but I think they're too late growing, so there is only a few of them having a little florets, and I'm gonna look for a little more. As you can see, here is a pretty big one, but otherwise I think it's too late, and we're expecting a harder frost in few days, which will definitely kill even these ones. Right, so after about an hour of picking, this is all the broccoli heads I got. So you can see it's not that much. It's maybe only half of this little basket, which is maybe like not even one, maybe it's one broccoli head, one or two. So I got maybe few times harvest like this. Sometimes you have these bugs, so I'm just removing them and putting them back into nature. So harvest like this I would have maybe 5 times I would have. So I think it's better to grow 5 broccolis than have 5 of these harvests like this throughout the year. And you see I have so many broccolis, so it's definitely not worth growing this one. It takes way too much time picking and just takes too much space as well for other things. But at least I know how to grow broccoli now, and next year hopefully I can grow the bigger one, which will be much better. So let's get into the kitchen and prepare something from this broccoli. Hello guys, so welcome back to the kitchen, and the recipe for today is gonna be broccoli and potato soup. So we have the broccoli from today that we picked earlier. Here we have a lot of potatoes. So as you saw before, we had a whole field of potatoes, so we have a lot of them right now. And I'm gonna make another video about potatoes, but today was mostly about broccoli. So these are these 2 main ingredients. And we're gonna start by chopping up 2 onions. So let's get started. Alright, next we have about 3 to 4 cloves of garlic. So we're gonna chop those up as well. Now we're gonna put it all in the pan and we're gonna saute it until it's translucent. Alright, so now we're adding some black pepper, some spring onions, alright, so now we're adding some dill, basil and parsley. Alright, so next we have about 6 medium-sized potatoes, so we're gonna peel them and chop them up. Alright, next we're gonna put our potatoes in the cooker. Alright, so next we're also gonna add in some garlic powder here, or if you have, you can also add onion powder. Alright, and now we're gonna add some vegetable broth. So this is a vegetable broth from the Swiss chard that we cooked earlier today. But you can use even water if you don't have with Vegeta, and we're gonna add about 2 liters. So our vegetable broth is not salty, so we're also gonna add about a tablespoon of salt. Alright, sorry guys for the bad quality, but my other camera just ran out of battery. So we're just gonna let this vegetable broth and potatoes cook, and now we're gonna prepare the cheesy sauce. So now we're just gonna measure about half a cup of cashews. Alright, so now we're just gonna put it in a NutriBullet blender. You can also use the normal blender. We're also gonna add 1 cup of water. Alright, and now we're just gonna blend it. Alright, so while our potatoes are boiling, we can add and now we're just gonna let it boil until the potatoes are soft. Alright, so as our mixture is boiling, we're gonna add some nutritional yeast. You can add about 2 tablespoons, or how much you prefer nutritional yeast. If you like more cheesy flavor, you can add more. If you don't like nutritional yeast so much, you can just add less or none at all. Alright, and once our potatoes cooked up for about 20 minutes, we're gonna add our broccoli. Alright, and now we're just gonna stir it and cook it for another maybe 20 minutes. You can also add more water if you feel like it's not soupy enough. Depends how thick you like it. And at the same time, we're gonna add a little bit of salt to taste. Again, you can do it without any salt added if you're doing no sodium, but we like a little bit of salt, so depends on your taste how much you want to add. Also, just a tip, if you don't want to use salt and you have lemons, if you add lemon, it will bring up the saltiness, so you can also use like half a lemon to add in there, and it will make it more salty. Alright, and here is the full result. So you see the consistency, it's quite soupy, and still a lot of broccoli, some potatoes there. And again, add salt to your taste, and this is how it's looking like.